if you ever liked me, if you ever think there was anything worthwhile about me, I'm begging you, please don't watch that show. I'm not asking you to boycott any network. Boycott me. Boycott Chappelle's show. Do not watch it unless they pay me. So I'm asking them, what do you need me for?
I guess we can start with 2016.
Okay. All right. Yeah. So yeah, 2016 it is then. This was right after, I mean, election day was on a Tuesday, of course. And then this was Saturday. So we had already had the whole situation. Like I said, Trump came out at 3:00 in the morning. He had his whole family, including his younger son, on stage.
He looked slow.
Yeah, and some people got in trouble for saying that.
Yeah. Not to mention, this is, Hillary had already placed this phone call.
She had to make that call.
Congratulating Donald, and, that hadn't happened yet here. We're, a month past?
Yeah, it's been a month. Yeah, it was November 8th. It's been a month. Trump has not made a phone call, and he's certainly not going to make a phone call.
Not going to make this phone call.
He's not going to be at inauguration. That's important. Before we go to that, we talked about this because the last time we did this, it was like, I think the day before of the day before the election. And,
was it?
I was a little worried talking about
I think
people are going to be out.
I think it was it just a day before the election?
I believe so, because it was on our minds. And, of course, I was all doom and gloom saying people are going to be out in the streets throwing Molotov cocktails and bottles and lead pipes.
I was trying to calm you down a little bit, wasn't I?
Yeah, you were. And, in looking back, we were both wrong and we were both right at the same time. You were saying it was going to be a landslide for Biden. It wasn't a landslide, but
it actually was a landslide, but
What would you call it that? I mean, would you say it was a landslide? I guess by popular, if you go by popular vote, for sure.
If you go by any popular vote or the Electoral College, it was a landslide. Either way, however you want to dice this thing up, because if you look back when Trump won in 2016, that was his main thing. He was saying, this was the biggest Electoral College victory in United States history. Well, Biden got the same exact number that Trump got in 2016.
That's true.
True. Yeah, it's a landslide either way. But on top of that, Biden got the popular vote by a wider margin than anyone in U.S. history as well. So let's keep that in mind. So again, this was a landslide, however you want to look at it.
In that case, you were absolutely right.
Yes, sir. He's not acting like it, and as far as his antics, but it was a landslide either way. But yeah, we were right there at election time. You were, saying we were going to be in the streets.
In the streets.
Throwing and you were still partially correct, except more so it's been Donald supporters that have been taking to the streets except for the first day, the next morning or the next day, or whenever they crowned Biden the victory. You had the Biden supporters that took to the streets and danced and did all that great stuff. But
that wasn't until Saturday, though.
Yeah,
right?
that was when they finally called PA? Or they finally gave
Pennsylvania that they called.
Gave him the Electoral College the 270 mark. But you know, you had that, but then after that, you know, you had the Stop the Steal coalition with Trumpers, and that's where we are today. And they have been taken to the streets and keeping up their foolishness is what I like to call it.
You know what was great is in Pennsylvania, no, in Michigan, they were the protesters were chanting "Stop the count."
Right.
And in Arizona, they were chanting "Count the vote."
Right. Yeah.
That was pretty funny.
It is. It is. So anyway, that's just setting up the premise to that. So back to 2016. Is that where we are? 2016.
Yeah. So back in 2016, if everybody remembers that Saturday, it was a somber day on SNL. It started out with Kate McKinnon, who played Hillary Clinton, sitting at the piano. Remember that? She was playing the piano and singing Hallelujah. And
I'm remembering this vividly, and I still have this terrible feeling within my gut. Do you not? Yeah, that was a terrible, terrible time.
It was a bad day, buddy. Everybody was depressed. Wasn't a lot of protesting going on because, I mean, the numbers were pretty clear. So it was
guys,
it was
the numbers
just
were
more
pretty freaking clear.
It was just more like nobody. It was disbelief. People were just like, "Oh shit, we did this." Yeah. So in the clip, this one is, I think it's about 3 minutes. I thought about chopping it in half, and then I thought, "What the hell? We'll just play." We played longer clips in the past, so see how this works. This was Dave. This was Dave in 2016, talking about the Obama had thrown a party at the White House. Mm-hmm. That was hosted by BET. And it was really an amazing thing to see. And Dave was invited, and he's talking about all the black faces plus Bradley Cooper. Right. So that's this clip. Stand by.
A few weeks ago, I went to the White House for a party. It was the first time I'd been there in many years. And it was very exciting. And BET had sponsored the party, so everyone there was black. And it was beautiful. I walked through the gates. You know, I'm from Washington, so I saw the bus stop, or the corner where the bus stop used to be, where I used to catch the bus to school and dream about nights like tonight. It was a really, really beautiful night. And at the end of the night, everyone went into the West Wing of the White House, and it was a huge party. And everybody in there was black except for Bradley Cooper for some reason. And on the walls were pictures of all the presidents of the past. Now, I'm not sure if this is true, but to my knowledge, the first black person that was officially invited to the White House was Frederick Douglass. They stopped him at the gates. Abraham Lincoln had to walk out himself and escort Frederick Douglass into the White House. And it didn't happen again, as far as I know, until Roosevelt was president. When Roosevelt was president, he had a black guy over and got so much flack from the media that he literally said, "I will never have a nigger in this house again." I thought about that, and I looked at that room, and I saw all those black faces in Bradley, and I saw how happy everybody was. These people who had been historically disenfranchised. And it made me feel hopeful, and it made me feel proud to be an American, and it made me very happy about the prospects of our country. So, in that spirit, I'm wishing Donald Trump luck, and I'm gonna give him a chance, and we, the historically disenfranchised, demand that he give us one too. Thank you very much.
So that was 2016, and he's telling us, you know, maybe we should,
you know, give him a chance. You know,
which is a very big thing to do. I mean, that takes a lot of humility.
Yeah.
And it's certainly not how people were feeling at the time.
Right, not at all. Not at all. But, you know, Dave was big enough because Dave has been pretty clear on where he stands politically.
Mm-hmm.
You can just look at some of his work and his sketches. And, you know, he's from Washington, D.C.
Mm-hmm.
So for him to take the main stage, not even a week after one of the, I mean, let's call it one of the biggest upsets in, you know, political history, that, you know, that took a lot. And I think for a certain for a certain generation that was geared to try to tame down some of the I'm not sure what word to actually use there, but some of the tone of where we stood, because people was upset.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we wasn't to the level of, you know, the Trump loyalist right now, as far as this was stolen from us type of deal. Granted, now, let's be honest, during that time, there were a lot of people that were holding on to the whole Russia deal, interference, and had that anger, but not to the level of, you know, where Trump supporters are now. So I think Dave was really trying to, you know, relieve some of the tension, I think, that was going on, and a lot of the anger that a lot of the people on the left was feeling.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he said he talked about how he hadn't seen white people this upset since the OJ verdict, which, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, you know, Dave Chappelle is a comedian first and foremost, but he's also, and this is not a recent phenomenon, he's always been somewhat political, somewhat deep in some of his humor. And like any great comedian, he's an observer of society. And I think he does it well. He does it very well. I mean, I can't think of another comedian who has managed to talk about some of these big social issues about like race relations and still be funny and still come out with hilarious material on it. I mean, George Carlin got very political towards the end of the, you know, the late 90s, early 2000s, but he got almost so political that his stand-up became almost more like he was preaching, and there was fewer and fewer jokes and more serious stuff. Dick Gregory was the same way.
Right.
So Dave has still managed. Now, not to say that when he came out with that 8 minutes and 36 seconds special, I mean, that was mostly serious stuff, but that was responding to a very serious situation.
Right.
And I think this most recent 18-minute special that he came out with, talking about his situation with Viacom CBS, it was mostly a serious discussion, but he sprinkles in enough humor that people watch.
Right.
There was, and we won't, I didn't pull the clip because it's just like, you know, it's out there on YouTube. People could go see it. But I mean, there was that election night sketch on SNL with Dave and also Chris Rock, where, you know, it was started out all the white people watching election coverage in their apartment. And like, as the night progressed, they're getting more and more anxious and scared and worried. You know, it started out, they're all laughing, saying, I think he's going to get 327 electoral votes. It's all this. And then at the end, they're like, wait, they haven't called Alaska yet. And then at the very end, they say, this is the worst thing America has ever done. And Chris Rock and Dave just look at each other and start laughing.
Like, yeah. Like, just screw over race, slavery.
Yeah, 400 years of oppression and rape and beating. Yeah, it really, I think that's what Dave tries to do, is put things in perspective.
Right.
And that's actually a perfect segue to the next clip that I'm going to play, which is pretty short, but it's another very important point that he made right after 2016, I believe. So,
I didn't know that Donald Trump was going to win the election. I did suspect it. Seemed like Hillary was doing well in the polls, and yet I know the whites. You guys aren't as full of surprises as you used to be. And I think I speak for all of Black America when I say that we are all praying for Omarosa. I don't even know what she's doing in the news. But America's done it. We've actually elected an internet troll as our president. And the whites were furious. We've never seen anything like it. I haven't seen white people this mad since the OJ verdict. There's a split screen with white people on both sides. Ah! I'm not saying I'm enjoying it. I'm just saying I've never seen this before. I watched a white riot in Portland, Oregon on television the other night. News said they did $1 million worth of damage. Every black person was watching that like amateurs. So I'm staying out of it. I'm just going to take a knee like Kaepernick and let the whites figure this out amongst themselves. Because for us, you know what I mean? We've been here before. We've been here before. And I don't even think it's the most important thing we're dealing with, man. Don't forget all the things that are going on. Shootings. What do you think about that? All these shootings in the last year.
Forgot about that.
What part did you forget about, buddy?
No, I'm not saying I forgot. I'm saying over the past 4 years, it seems like society has maybe forgotten about the fact that we had a shitload of mass shootings there. And we haven't had one of those in a while.
Mainly, got a lot I want to discuss here.
Mm-hmm.
Mainly Negroes.
I was going to say, mainly crackers.
Mainly white boys that wanted to take their guns and shoot up stuff. That's what I just, everybody wouldn't understand that reference. But no, seriously. Yeah, I mean, toward the, Obama's term, especially that last term, was full of mass shootings, man. And, it was terrible trying to get legislation for that and just the divide of how people made that so political over, my guns and my right to carry. And, I know this, we're not trying to just get it all into the political side of things, but my goodness, he was not trying to take your guns. Democrats do not want to take your guns, people.
Nobody wants to take your gun. Yeah, it's just not going to happen. It's like,
yeah, but it's like that is the political football that a lot of the people on the right try to use to distract you, I think, from the real issues with that. We regulate everything else.
Mm-hmm.
But, that's a whole nother conversation. But moving right along.
Well, and what I will say is that in a very ironic turn of events, the only really major federal gun legislation that's been passed in, I don't know, the past, since whenever they let the assault weapons ban expire and during George W.'s term, has been Donald Trump's ban on bump stocks.
Right.
I mean, we had the Sandy Hook massacre of 4 and 5-year-old kids, 6-year-old kids, and Obama tried to do something, anything, and Biden was involved, and it was deadlocked. But here comes Donald Trump, Mr. NRA, and he said, well, in the White House, he had people from the NRA in, and he made that comment that he had to quickly go back on Twitter and say, I didn't mean it that way, but he said, take the guns first and ask questions later. But he was responsible for pushing the bump stock ban through. And it does make you wonder,
Yeah.
does his race have anything? You know, I mean, if Obama had tried to ban bump stocks, I mean,
listen here, buddy. We all know that a lot of it had to do with just that. Whether we want to admit it or not, let's not be dumb to the fact of what is still so blatant in this country.
Yep.
And a lot of obstacles and things that Barack Hussein Obama had to deal with was due to just that.
Yep. That was another clip where he was talking about, you know, right after, I think it was on Wednesday or Thursday of that week, Obama invited then President-elect Donald Trump to the White House for a meeting. And, you know, he was talking about how Trump was probably in there like, well, yeah, it seems like this is going to be a little more difficult than I thought. And Obama would say, well, at least you get to do it while being white. So, moving on. The next clip is, you know, speaking of race, you know, Dave's talking about being, you know, the Black Lives Matter movement. He talks about how even the police got behind it, saying Blue Lives Matter, which of course is a false equivalency because that's not a life, that's a uniform. You can take your uniform off, get a different job.
Right.
And then he says, you know, if I could quit being black, it's like I'd be out the game. And then he goes into talking about the next best thing, which is being a rich black person. So play that. I think that's the last of our 2016 clips.
Donald Trump, he did it. He's our president. I feel bad saying it. I'm staying in a Trump hotel right now. I don't know if he's gonna make a good president, but he makes a swell hotel suite, I'm gonna tell you that. Housekeeping comes in the morning, cleans my room, and I just, hey, good morning, housekeeping. Grab a big handful of pussy and say, you know. Boss said it was okay. Sorry about that, Lauren. All my black friends who have money said the same thing when Trump got elected. That's it, bro. I'm out. I'm leaving the country. You coming with us? Nah, I'm good, dog. I'm gonna stay here and get this tax break, see how it works out. 'Cause that's how it is being Dave Chappelle. It's the first time I got some money, it didn't work out like that. The most unlikely thing that happened ever was a black president came out of nowhere like, come on, everybody, let's start thinking about everyone else. Oh, nigga, I just got this money! I didn't even think it was possible.
Oh man, Dave is the way he sets his punchlines up is just magnificent.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, that was a little walk through the past, how we felt and how the country felt. We'll go into 2020 now. So this is COVID era, of course, Donald Trump COVID era. And
Trump virus.
The Kung Flu.
Hey, if he can call it the China plague, the China flu, you know, all that good stuff, then yeah, I can put it on him as well. So the Trump virus, or the virus that he did not handle well at all.
The one he lied about and, you know, knew about it, didn't tell anybody about it for about 3 months because it's kind of like when...
Because it was bad. He knew how bad it was.
Yeah.
This thing is bad.
Yeah, let's just ignore that because it's bad for... Well, I mean, he's a television host. It's bad for ratings. He doesn't, you know, that's all he thinks about. So This is him talking about Donald Trump having the coronavirus, and it's pretty funny.
So what do we have up?
Trump got the Rona.
Trump got the Rona.
And after all that, you know what he did? You know what Trump did after all that stuff? Went out and got the coronavirus. Wasn't that something? You know, when he got coronavirus, they said everything about it on the news. But you know what they didn't say? That it was hilarious. It was hilarious. Trump getting coronavirus was like when Freddie Mercury got AIDS. Nobody was like, well, how did he get it? This guy was running around like the outbreak monkey. He looked like a 1970s penis, just raw dog and earth. Day after he made fun of Joe Biden's mask, this guy wears the biggest mask I've ever seen, which is a ridiculous thing. Joe Biden's mask wasn't bigger than anybody else's mask, Mr. President. Lucky for the rest of the country, though, he had a good health care plan, didn't he? Some good coverage. Helicopter picked him up. Right in his front yard, helicopter came. Remember that video where he's walking to the helicopter all by himself? No one to be around. Usually he's walking to the helicopter with a bunch of people. No one's around him this time because, you know, he had the Rona. Had his mask on then, didn't he? He was walking over. Helicopter took him to Walter Reed Hospital. You know, I'm from D.C., and I got to tell you, Walter Reed is not close to the White House, but you can walk. A team of doctors was waiting for him. All the doctors came around and gave him experimental medicine and stuff and flew him back home in a helicopter. And then he walked right up the steps. You ever see this video? He took his mask off and saluted the helicopter and then walked right in the house, killed 4 more people. I said $700.50 in taxes goes a long way, doesn't it, sir? Some cold stuff, man. Some cold stuff. That would be like me going to a homeless shelter with a bag full of hamburgers and saying, these is mine. And then just start eating in front of all the homeless. Don't let hunger dictate your life. I was cold, man. Meanwhile, Chris Christie's fat ass was in the ICU fighting for his life. Chris Christie got all the fixings. Everything coronavirus likes to eat, that's what's in Chris Christie's body. Fat, check. Asthma, check. Diabetes, check. Coronavirus is like, Herman Cain's black ass had been dead for 2 weeks. Where was his secret serum? That's your leader. Think about that. For 4 years, that's your leader. What kind of man does that? What kind of man makes sure he's okay while his friends fight for their lives and die? A white man. And I don't mean to put this on the whites, but I've been black a long time. I've noticed the pattern.
I've been black a long time.
Notice the pattern. Yeah. So that's the coronavirus. I mean, shit. He's right. Helicopter came and picked him up. Trump got the best care he could possibly get. And the whole thing about going to the homeless shelter with a bag of hamburgers.
Yeah, that was, yeah. That actually was pretty spot on if you think about it.
Don't let hunger dictate your life.
Like he's sitting there eating a burger, talking to the American people.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy.
All right, so a couple more from SNL. He starts to talk about white people not being ready. So just leave it at that. I'll let him explain the rest.
Don't even want to wear your mask because it's oppressive. Try wearing the mask I've been wearing all these years. I can't even tell something true unless it has a punchline behind it. You guys aren't ready. You're not ready for this. You don't know how to survive yourselves. Black people, we're the only ones that know how to survive this. Whites, come, hurry quick. Come get your nigga lessons. You need us. You need our eyes to save you from yourselves. Remember when white people and black people couldn't be together? It was just white people alone in the club dancing. You ever see that old footage? How'd they look? This is what they was doing with the body. You need some black eyes to look at you like, stop doing that.
Go right to the next one.
This morning after the results came in, got a text from a friend of mine in London. And she said, the world feels like a safer place now that America has a new president. And I said, well, that's great, but America doesn't. Do you guys remember what life was like before COVID? I do. It's a mass shooting every week. Anyone remember that? Thank God for COVID. Something had to lock these murderous whites up, keep them in the house.
One more.
They were saying, man, I'm trying to put my children to bed. And I keep hearing this guy screaming all night. My kids are trying to sleep, and all they hear is the N-word. I said, was I saying it, or were you? He had that twang in his voice. You know that twang where you hear that accent like, oh, I know he doesn't wear his mask. I don't know why poor white people don't like wearing masks. What is the problem? You wear a mask at the Klan rally. Wear it to Walmart, too.
Oh, that's great. And I must say, must interrupt this. Just got breaking news. The Supreme Court denies Republicans' request to block certification of election results in Pennsylvania. So, it's just amazing how he's been fighting this for over a month now, looks like.
Mm-hmm.
And these blows that keeps happening to this guy. But once again, I mean, this is the Supreme Court. This isn't just one of any courts. This is a court that where he's placed 4 justices, 3, 4?
Yeah.
But they've denied his request to block the certification of election results in Pennsylvania. So that's a devastating blow to the Trump campaign, and hopefully we can go ahead and start. Majority of the country has begun to move forward from this guy, but maybe now this will, let him begin to move forward, which I highly doubt. But
well, it's the Hail Mary thing. I was thinking
Right.
He's going to bring it to the Supreme Court, which you have to go through all the lower courts. You can't
or
just
try. You just can't. And that's, and when I'm looking at this, I haven't clicked on the story. This is just the CNN alert that I received, but I hadn't read the story. But I know for most of the stuff that he's tried to slap on the wall, most of it won't even be able to make it to the Supreme Court to even have them, take a look at it. So
No, most of it got thrown right the fuck out.
Right.
Because it was ridiculous shit. I mean,
well, I guess by looking, now that I'm actually slowing down and looking a little bit more, it's the Pennsylvania Republicans, which I'm sure, the Trump campaign has been working right hand in hand with those guys, but I'm sure Trump's Twitter right now, is probably still saying, we still have a chance. This is actually my administration that was at the Supreme Court. This is the Pennsylvania Republicans. So I'm sure he's going to twist this some kind of way to make it not seem quite as bad. But this is a near fatal blow to his attempts to once again overturn the will of the American people.
all those Twitter fact checkers are going to be frantically having to flag all his tweets saying this potentially contains false information.
Right. I'm getting sick of even seeing his tweets pop up because behind every one has that disclaimer written on it. So
I started following him on Twitter back in like the early parts of 2015 because
Really?
I just thought it was hilarious. Like this guy's running for president? Seriously? Like right after he came down that golden escalator, the Trump Tower, and announced Mexicans are rapists and murderers, and I'm running for president.
Hear me, sir. I didn't start following him until probably 1 month ago.
And come January 20th, it's going to be just, it's going to lose a lot of followers.
He's going to be cut off. Now, I'm probably going to stick around
a
little bit longer just to see, just to hear him. And that's just until Twitter decides to ban him.
That's what I was going to say. I was talking to somebody else about that. They were talking about that guy, Milo Yiannopoulos, that British gay dude with the blonde hair that dates all the black guys and was but somehow was like working for Breitbart and was super conservative. And I mean, I think a lot of that was that he was playing a character of the loud guy that wants to piss the left off, and like you can't make fun of him because he's gay and he dates a black guy. Well, he got banned. Twitter just said, listen here, you're cut off.
Yeah.
It would be, if that happens to Donald Trump, I mean, the man might kill himself. What's he going to do?
He's protected right now.
Yeah, they can't
by the office of the president. They can't do anything. They can't put a ban on him or whatnot from what I've read. So, but he loses, of course, he's going to lose all that come January 20th. So he's going to get on there spilling that crazy rhetoric, and they're going to eventually get tired of it.
Get those
going to be cut off.
Another 45-minute long video about Jesus
foolishness that's already been debunked. But okay,
they'll just start a new, like they have that new social media thing now called
Right,
Parler.
I've heard about that too, where you can say whatever you want on there, and
I've seen some screenshots. It is not pretty, buddy. What this shit thing saying?
I haven't. I may get an account just to get one.
You're gonna get banned for 30 days immediately, son. They posted all kinds of pictures of their guns and their bullets and saying, "Get ready, inwards," and this and that. It's bad. It is not good, buddy.
Yeah, I need to get an account.
Yeah, let me know how that goes. I can't handle it.
I'm on Smokey right now. Anybody out there, Dave Chappelle fans that are on Smokey.com, you're listening to this right now. I'm banned.
I think that's great. So now we're kind of moving into what I referred to earlier as the elephant in the room, which is what's going on with Netflix and HBO Max, Viacom. It comes down to Viacom. So Dave is mad. No punchline to that shit. He is mad at Viacom, which of course owns Comedy Central. And he's saying that they should pay him for streaming his show. And while technically he did sign a contract giving Viacom the permission to use his name and likeness, all that, he's saying that doesn't necessarily make it right. Of course, we can go into our thoughts on that, but he starts hinting at it here in the last SNL clip where he's talking about his great grandfather, right. And you can tell he's starting to. It was like right after they had started streaming his show. So here we go.
I was thinking about a person I never actually met, but I heard about all my life. I was thinking about my great-grandfather, who apparently, by all accounts, was a very great man. He was born a slave in South Carolina, was a slave for 10 years of his life, and when the Northerners came down, they started educating some of the newly freed black children, and he learned how to read. Got enamored with education and dedicated his life to three things: education, freedom of black people, Jesus Christ became a juggernaut in the AME church. It's a pretty amazing story my great-grandfather had. And I thought about him all day today because I wish I could see him now. And I wish he could see me. Because I wonder what he would say. This week I flew to New York on a private jet to host Saturday Night Live. Netflix started streaming a show that bears his name, Chappelle Show. And HBO Max is streaming it. And I didn't get paid for any of it. Yeah, if he could see me now, he'd probably be like, this nigga got bought and sold more than I have.
That's a great segue into the 18-minute special he gave. But before that, if you notice, this isn't the first time that we've heard about his great-grandfather.
Right.
He spoke about him in his last special, if I'm not mistaken. Do you remember that?
Yeah, he's talked about him and he talked about him on I think that 2016 episode of SNL also. I didn't pull that clip, but he's talking about his great-grandfather. I found a picture of his great-grandfather online one time. He was part of a delegation of black men that got invited to the White House, actually, for something a long time ago. And you're right, he's brought him up before. Really interesting story. We talked about his background and his family history before. It's fascinating. So that brings us to what's going on in today's world. So everybody kind of noticed that Chappelle's show was all of a sudden streaming on Netflix, which was amazing. I mean, it's always been streaming. I mean, listen, if you go to Comedy Central on like any given night after 11 or o'clock or whatever, it's either South Park or Chappelle's show. I mean, they play it
right
constantly. And since he did violate his contract when he left the show, they still own this. They own that shit. I mean, look what they did with the quote unquote lost episodes. They just said, shit, we're going to churn out whatever it is, whatever we've recorded. Let's try to play it. They called Donnell Rawlings and Charlie Murphy and said, get down here. We gotta churn these sketches out. And even released a DVD. I mean, they just had to make as much money off of what little they had while Dave was having a nervous breakdown. And they've been doing it ever since. So this is not a new concept. I mean, it's just now it's not just Comedy Central, it's HBO Max and it's Netflix.
And I think, I don't know, thinking of the whole situation with Dave and, this is kind of a side tangent of where we're going with this, but I'm interested actually, and I think I mentioned this before when we first talked about this situation with Dave. I'm interested to see if there is an interview or even further understand where Dave and Mr. Rawlings stand at this point.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder, do they have a relationship? I wonder how Dave actually feels about that. I wonder how Mr. Rawlings actually feels about his decision. Does he regret it now? Or what? Because that's a pretty big blow, especially depending on, I guess it boils down to what kind of relationship they have. Now, Mr. Rawlings has to owe Dave a lot of his, anything we know about him now is due to Dave.
Yeah.
I didn't know anything about him before. So you can kind of say that Dave pretty much made his career. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of a break in loyalty, a break in trust there. And I equate that to, I don't know if you've been paying attention or if you follow these guys, but in the comedic world, Nick Cannon, you know, he lost his whole Wild 'N Out show.
Mhm. Yeah.
Okay. Here recently, they offered a guy named DC Young Fly that was on the show, and he's up and coming now, and he's starting to do very well for himself. But of course, Nick put him on. Nick Cannon gave him that opportunity. They offered him 6 figures to host the show, and he told them, "No, I'm not going to cross Nick like that. You know, Nick gave me that opportunity. You know, my blessings will come. I will get blessed some kind of way for turning this down. It's a lot of money, but I'm not going to cross him like that." So, you know, I look at that situation, and he's received ample amount of praise from all kind of actors, musicians. You know, once that story broke, everybody's like saying how loyal that is, the props that he's gotten for that. And soon as that broke, I looked back and I was thinking, I wonder, you know, the Dave and Mr. Rawlings situation, because it was very, you know, similar situation. You know,
You could say the same thing for Neil. I mean, Neil stayed on Chappelle's show, stayed working at Chappelle's show after Dave left. Charlie Murphy stayed. And
well, I guess the staying and working is one thing. Like, I'm not sure that the new up and coming DC Young Fly, if him staying and working would have been one thing versus them offering you to host it when they fired the person who has created and hosted, you know, all this time. That's a little bit different to me versus just staying there and working on it.
Yeah. Well, I will say this, and we haven't discussed this, but the one of the more recent episodes of the Joe Rogan podcast, Dave Chappelle finally did that show, which people have been speculating for years about whether or not he would ever do that show. But on that episode, in fact, it is him. It's Dave and Darnell Rawlings.
Really?
So they have some kind of a relationship, obviously.
Yeah, maybe there's no love lost there then.
But I mean, we did also talk about this a little bit with regard to the episode of why Dave left Chappelle's show, and you know, it was definitely, I think, in well, shit, where did it go? This is a 3-hour long podcast. I haven't listened to it yet. Yeah, Donnell Rawlings and Dave Chappelle 2 weeks ago.
Okay. Need to check that out. Well, yeah.
So there's some relationship there, but I think over time, you know, time heals everything. And there was a time that he and Neil were not speaking.
Right.
And I think that relationship has healed. But yeah, this one is 3 hours and 24 minutes long.
Whew,
so I just haven't brought myself to, that's about a half a day thing but you know, that's another one that it's 7.6 million views. I don't know how much we can cover it anyway, but it would be interesting to hear. I'm sure they go into the Chappelle show and
right. I'm gonna have to take a listen to that, or at least thumb through it and see if that's addressed at all.
Yeah, it's amazing. So there's loyalty, and you don't find loyalty that much in show business because money talks.
Yep.
So the next clip is he's talking about contracts, and he's got a joke. He's very young, and somebody asked him if they can buy his joke for $50. And so he's leading up to what we're talking about now.
When I was 15 years old, I had written a joke during the AIDS epidemic about having a Goodyear condom. Something, I don't even remember the joke. Something about an industrial strength condom by Goodyear. I just remember all the comedians really liked that joke. And there was an older comedian. And he came to me one night after the show, after he saw the joke, and he said, "Listen, I got an audition at another comedy club, and I was wondering, do you mind if I do that joke? I just want to borrow it. Now, I'm a kid. I don't know any better. I'm like, borrow it? Well, I guess, sure, if it'll help your career. I let him do the joke. And then weeks later, I was waiting to go on in a comedy club, and he went on before me, and he did the joke. And after the show, I pulled him aside and I said, hey, man, I don't mind you borrowing my jokes, but you gotta give them back. He said, oh, I forgot to ask you. He goes, let me buy that joke from you for $50. And I said, man, I'd do it, but I'm just starting out. I need all the material I can get. The idea being that the more material I can accumulate, the faster I'll be able to make money for my work. I said, I can't do it. I want my joke back. I'll never forget this. Remember, I was a 15-year-old child. This guy was a grown-ass man. He stood up over me so I could see how big he was. And he said to me, really? I can just take it. And he did. I got scared because I was a child. But I never forgot that. I never forgot that. I was 15 years old. I'm 47 now. I think about this guy all the time. When I look at my own kids and I see how young and innocent they are, I can't believe someone did that to me. And I don't think about it every day because that was the worst thing that happened to me. I think about it every day because that was the first time that someone ever did that to me. But in my career, it has happened many, many times since, where someone would intimidate me or scare me and take something that I believe was mine. Do you know why Prince, the famous rock star that was a friend of mine, do you know why he called himself the artist when he came back? He calls himself the artist because that's what they call us in our contracts. Oh, these contracts are crazy. You should hear the terminology they say in these contracts. To use your name and likeness in perpetuity throughout the universe. Who the fuck could possibly know what that means? Nobody does. It's so complicated, in fact, that when you're a kid like me, you have to hire somebody to tell you what that means. And you sit down at a table and you do the contract game. And that's how I got with Comedy Central. I signed the contract. But I signed the contract the way that a 28-year-old expectant father that was broke signs a contract. I was desperate, I needed a way out, and it wasn't good money and it wasn't good circumstances, but what else am I gonna do, I said. And all these white people sitting at that table told me, trust us, Dave, it's a good contract. And I looked around the table and they all seemed to agree it was a good contract. But what if it was like that game of three-card Monte? What if they were all friends and I didn't know it?
So I didn't pull the clip of him talking about this game of three-card Monte because, I mean, shit, it's only this new special is only 18 minutes. People can watch it. But do you know what three-card Monte is?
I do.
So he's talking about that, and the guy finds out that all the people that are supposedly watching this guy are actually in on it. Yeah. So he's saying, what if all these people in the Comedy Central in that boardroom
were in on it?
We're in on it.
Yes. Come in.
Now, you don't know the details of his contract or how much. I mean, I haven't seen it. I don't know. But, I mean, we are talking about to a guy who was 27, 28 years old, substantial amounts of money all of a sudden that he's looking at, and irregular money, not like he had done some movies that I'm sure made good money, but he's looking at this now it's not a movie, it's a show. It's not a one-off, it's a thing. He's going to start getting these checks, and they do this to a lot of artists. They rope them in with contracts that are not necessarily that great, and then they're locked in. What's her name? Taylor Swift was fighting Spotify for a long time over the rights to her stuff, and I mean, it happens all the time, going way back.
It's like you sign your life away, literally.
Mm-hmm.
One thing Dave does so beautifully, he just draws you in with a story, and he just makes you he just, I can't even put into words the genius in him of his storytelling ability. The guy has a great storytelling ability, and knows how to perfectly add just the right amount of humor, even when it's such a difficult topic that's really pressing him and upsetting him. He just has a way of still making you bringing you along for that ride and telling that story.
Mm-hmm. And speaking of stories, he goes into we're getting down to the last 2 or 3 clips, talking about specifically HBO, which we have talked about before. He pitched Chappelle's show to HBO,
right?
And we know how that went. How they responded. So here's that clip.
Last week, 2 weeks ago, whenever it was, I call Lauren Michaels and I tell him, okay, I'll do it. I'll do Saturday Night Live on election night. And the day I made that phone call, the day I committed to it, it gets announced that Netflix is streaming Chappelle's show. Not just Netflix, HBO Max is streaming it too. Let me tell you another story about HBO. No, hear me out. Did you know, before Chappelle's show was at Comedy Central, I pitched that show to HBO. I told them what I wanted to do. Now, these are executives. All they have to do is say, yeah, we'll take it, or no, thank you, we won't. But they didn't say either of those things. They went too far. They said, literally, what do we need you for? That's what they told me, as they kicked me out of the office. What do we need you for? And here we are, all these years later, and they're streaming the very show that I was pitching to them. So I'm asking them, what do you need me for?
All right, last one.
And I hold on, and I
Okay.
watched this, and actually, this is my 3rd time today, seeing this. Well, today makes the 3rd time over the span of when it came out. But even in that short clip that you was just sharing, I was drawn in again, like it was my first time, and I was listening and in tune,
Mm-hmm.
And he just has that ability. He has that ability. Continue on.
Yeah, like you're sitting around the fireplace, and he's going to tell you a story.
Right.
He's great. All right, so this is the last one. He's talking about Netflix, and again, we're talking about loyalty. They pulled it, and which was, I'm sure, a big loss financially for them. But I do have some thoughts on that as well. But we'll play the clip.
That's why I like working for Netflix. I like working for Netflix because when all those bad things happened to me, that company didn't even exist. And when I found out they were streaming Chappelle's show, I was furious. How could they not know? So you know what I did? I called them and I told them that this makes me feel bad. And do you want to know what they did? They agreed that they would take it off their platform just so I could feel better. That's why I fuck with Netflix, because they paid me my money, they do what they say they're gonna do, and they went above and beyond what you could expect from a businessman. They did something just because they thought that I might think that they were wrong. And I I do. I think if you are fucking streaming that show, you're fencing stolen goods. They stole that from me. They just took it. And I'm not up here trying to tell you guys that I believe that Comedy Central gave me a raw deal just because I'm black. I believe that they gave me a raw deal because this fucking industry is a monster. It's the same monster that these Me Too bitches was trying to tell you about. But they hate the monster for how it fucks. And I hate that monster for how it eats. But my God, man, it's the same monster.
That's pretty, that's a pretty deep.
And I'm sure that he'll catch some shit from the Me Too people for even making that comparison.
Well, yeah, of course. I mean,
But you know,
what is it if you don't have something to bitch about?
Right. They've had a target on his back for a long time. But I will say this in terms of, in doing some research, I read a whole bunch of articles, and one of them was from, I forget the source. It was like an opinion piece, but somebody pointed out that yes, Netflix, on the surface, it does seem like they have done the loyal and noble thing here. But just play a devil's advocate, I guess, a little bit. Mm-hmm. They've got ulterior motives because they've got Dave signed on, to do these stand-up specials, and they don't want him to be unhappy because they're probably looking at what happened about 15 years ago or 13 years ago when he walked away from Comedy Central, and they're probably looking at dollar signs and saying, we need this man to be happy working with us.
Right. Because
from what I read, he had a 5 special deal with them. He's done 3 or 4. I mean, they're looking at the bottom
4,
line,
right? Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, it was the right thing to do because they want their employees to be happy. But again, it was a business thing. It wasn't just we don't want Dave's feelings to be hurt. I don't know.
Yeah. Interesting as well. I think a little bit of both. I mean, wanting to do what's right to your client and wanting them to be happy and all that good stuff, but as well as a business decision,
Mm-hmm.
Because if he's at a point where he's able to tell you that this doesn't make me feel good and that they know his content and he speaks his mind and they've heard the things that he has said about, Comedy Central and all that good jazz, then you don't want to turn Dave against you because then he's going to go out there and he's going to talk shit about you. Mm-hmm. And, Netflix doesn't want nor need that. So no. I think a little mixture of both there.
Because here's another thing. Netflix has been, they're not getting a lot of new subscribers.
Right.
They're, I think because there's so many different streaming services now, everything's gotten segmented out. People are subscribing to Disney Plus and HBO and everything has a streaming service now. So Netflix is looking at that stock price. They can't afford to lose David Chappelle right now. But another thing that I thought, and that's the last clip. We're pretty much done. But I did want to get your thoughts on this because this is just he mentions it a couple of times, and the special. It's 18 minutes long. It was released on Instagram. It's called Unforgiven. People can go and find it. But I
think it's still on YouTube as well now.
Yeah. And he talks about the idea of he's been approached before, I guess, to do another Chappelle show.
Right.
Of course, he wouldn't be able to call it Chappelle Show because Viacom CBS owns that name.
Signed his life away, man.
Yep. But that could be something that, I don't know. I mean, the guy's almost 50 years old. He's got plenty of money doing what he loves, which is stand-up. I don't know that in fact, I have my doubts that he would do another sketch comedy show. What do you think? Your thoughts?
I think I have my doubts as well. Yeah, I have my doubts. I think that I think the time has, he's ran its course with that.
Mm-hmm.
They, of course, it's all laughter to us. It's we've seen the episode and we laugh and giggle, and well, during those times, light up a joint, do whatever. Those are great times, and it was great to us. But that took a lot of work. It took a lot of work. Dave's a lot older now, and I don't know. I just don't think that he's into it like that. He's not as hungry as the mid 30-year-old Dave was.
Mm-hmm.
He's reached a certain amount of wealth now to where he doesn't, not saying he still doesn't practice or try to either hone his craft even more, but it's a certain level of hunger that comes within you, when you're working on something, I think to make those great things. And I think he's beyond that a little bit. I think he will continue to do his stand up, and it's great. And us Dave Chappelle fans will have that to go by, but to do another Chappelle type show, I don't know. I think that time has kind of come and passed, and we will be left with just the old DVDs that we will have to watch.
Mm-hmm. And in some ways, I think that makes it more special almost. We'll have these DVDs of a time, the early 2000s. It's just like that's a part of its era. It'd be like, anytime they try to remake a movie or reboot a TV show, it's not the same. And yeah, that's a young man's game, like you were saying. I mean, he was 27 or 28 when they started, and they were working 18-hour days. He doesn't need to do that now.
Yeah.
So.
Yep. I completely agree, man. There, buddy.
What I'll do is put the final clip in the outro, because I think it ties it up nicely. Just him talking about how, again, going back to the election and just saying, we need to be, just like he said in 2016, we need to give Donald Trump a chance. He's kind of saying now, let's not forget that half the country is not happy about the election results. And we shouldn't gloat. We should be humble winners.
Fuck that, buddy. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Well,
Dave knew better than that as well.
Yeah, I know.
He's just joshing us.
That's the well-rounded, humble Dave talking.
Right. But what can we expect? He did the same thing in 2016 when he ended and saying, give him a chance and all that good stuff,
When we were all saying, when I was saying, I got to get the fuck out of this country. About 2 weeks after that, I moved to California. I moved to California.
Yeah, you moved to Cali.
So, it's just, we go through the cycle every 4 years.
Yep. Yes, indeedy.
All right, buddy.
Yes, indeedy. Well, I think we had a great episode. Guys, join us for our next one. We'll kick ass with more great Dave Chappelle. No telling, he may drop something in the middle of the night on us, and we'll be back to talk about it.
Yep, we might have to do an emergency broadcast depending on how things go. I hope that, like he said, and it's going to be in the intro, he's saying boycott Chappelle show right now, which makes what we're doing awkward. But I hope that things work out and he gets what he wants out of it, whether that's money or whether. Well, I think that's it. Well, he wants to get paid.
And one other thing, and saying boycott the Chappelle show, that's one thing, but when you're a true fan, you have this saved somewhere in some form of fashion. You already have all the Dave Chappelle stuff. So,
absolutely,
you have it on DVD or you have it saved in illegal clips and files. Not to say any names. Okay. But you have it somewhere.
External hard drive somewhere.
Yeah, so he's just saying, boycott it on these streaming platforms that are not paying him for his work. So that's all that. And one last thing. Today we were brought to you by the delicious McRib sandwich that I had for lunch today. Currently still drinking my Dr. Pepper from there right now. But stop by. They're back, baby. They are back. Especially here in Texas.
They're back. I saw an article from the Washington Post about the McRib.
with the special barbecue sauce and the onions and the pickles on the sesame seed bun.
Second one for $1.
Second one for $1. God
damn. That's what I'm gonna eat for dinner tonight.
All right, buddy. It's been a good one, man.
All right, talk to you later.
All right, bye-bye.
I would implore everybody who's celebrating the day to remember it's good to be a humble winner. Remember when I was here 4 years ago? Remember how bad that felt? Remember that half the country right now still feels that way. Please remember that. You gotta find a way to find joy in your existence in spite of that feeling. And if you can't do that, come get these nigga lessons. Thank you very much and good night.